Now let's go ahead and set up a 3D scene. For that, I have an Illustrator file that you have also included in your project files. Let's go ahead and import it. File, Import File, and under Chapter 10, choose Musicians.ai and click on Open. And now a new panel pops up. We want to import this as a composition layer size. Click OK, and you're going to see that After Effects imported all of the layers of this Illustrator file and placed them in its own folder, and it also created a composition with the name of the file, in this case, Musicians. I'll go ahead and double click it, and there it is. I'm also going to change this to a DV size for the composition. So Composition Settings, and I'll use the DV preset and I'll click OK. There is alpha in here, so these musicians are in a transparency, and they are all separate layers. So I'm going to make this a little bit taller. I'll select all of the layers and turn them into 3D layers. Now I'm going to position them, but first I need to know where I'm going to position them. I would like to put them into some kind of stage, and for that I'm going to need 3 walls, one for the side, one for the back, and one for the other side, and I'll need a 4th layer for the floor. So I'm going to go ahead and create solids. Control or Command Y is the shortcut for that, and I'll make him white, and I'll just call these stage. And then I'll duplicate the layer, Command D, Control D on Windows, and I need a total of 4. I'll select all 4 of the stage layers, and I'll press P for position. The top layer will be the back of the stage, so I'm going to name it Back, and I'll move it towards the back. The next one is going to be the left wall, and I'll rename it that. And I also need to change the rotation of this one, so I'll press Shift R. That will give me both the position and the rotation parameters. I'll rotate it on the Y parameter 90 degrees. I'll just type the number. Now all I have to do is move it. And I'll do the same with the right wall, which is the next layer. I'll just rename it Right Wall. And I'll rotate it, Shift R, 90 degrees for Y rotation. And I'll just move it like so. And of course, the floor is the last one, which needs to be rotated on the X-axis. So I'll type 90 degrees for that. And now I'll just lower it so that I form kind of a box with these layers. And I know it's not a perfect box, but I can make these a little bit larger, and I'll do so. I'm going to select all of the walls and press S for scale. Now I'll just make him a little bit larger. And I can now move them a little bit further apart from each other so that my stage is a tiny little bit larger. So I'll select all of them, P for position, and there you go. The one in the back can move backwards a little bit more. The one on the left can move left a little bit more. So can the one on the right, and so can the floor. Now it's time to view this from another angle. And that's not too bad. I'll grab my Unified Camera tool and do this. And I can move my back towards the front a tiny little bit more. There you go. And it's not a perfect box, but I think this will do. The next thing that I have to do is I have to put these musicians where they need to go. So I'm going to change the view to a left view. And now it's time to lower the musicians so that they're standing on the floor. I'm going to collapse all of these layers, and now I'm going to go just to the musicians, which are the bass player, the singer, the guitar player, and the drummer. I'll select all of them and press P for position. Right now I'm just going to deal with the Y-axis. You can see the floor right here at the bottom. And if I'm going to have these musicians standing on the floor, I need to lower them until they touch the floor. The same with the singer. I'll zoom in a little bit. The same with the singer. Same with the guitar player. And of course, the drummer. And there he is. Alright, so I just have to make sure that these are indeed standing on the floor. And there you go. I can go to the back and I can move it forward a tiny little bit. Let's look from another angle, maybe from the right. And this is good. Maybe from the top now. From the bottom. And that's pretty good. Let's go back to the active camera. And all I have left to do is to move the musicians in the Z-axis. So, I'm going to go again to the left view. And this time, I just select them and move them directly with the mouse on the stage. I'll put the singer in the front, the guitar player in the front, I'll put the drummer in the back, and I'll put the bass player towards the back as well, a little bit in front of the drummer. And that's not bad. I'll collapse these layers. And I'll go back to reset the standard workspace. And I'll change the view to the active camera view. And that's not bad. Alright, the last thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to parent all of these layers to a null object. So layer, new, null object. I'll make it 3D. I'll select all of the layers and then deselect just that one, and then I'll parent them to that. And now I can move the whole group as one. P for position, and I'll just move him backwards a little bit. I can also rotate the stage a tad. So R for rotation. And that's good. Maybe I'll move it backwards a little bit more. There you go. I can move it side to side, but I think I like them where they are. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with these musical notes. I'll select all of them, and I'm just going to make them a little bit smaller. So S for scale. And there you go. And I'll just position them by hand. I'll zoom in. And I'll position them all over. Musical note 2. Position it here. Musical note 3. Maybe this one will be dancing here. The copy of 3. And finally the treble clef, which I'll just make it around here. I could manipulate the Z-axis of these. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. I'll select all of these. P for position. And I'll just change the Z values so they all read slightly different. And that's not bad. I'll collapse all of these layers. Command or Control A selects everybody. And I'll deselect now. Alright, I think it's time to add a light So layer, new, light. And I'll make this kind of like a bluish, light blue light. Make sure that it's casting shadows and it's a spotlight. And that's not bad. I'll increase the light intensity. T is the shortcut for that. And I can see now a little bit better. I'll move this closer and to the side. Now I'm going to duplicate the light, Control or Command D, and I'll move the duplicate in a little bit and here. And I'll change its color. I can just double click it. Maybe this one I'll make a little bit on the yellowish side. And this, of course, you can make them any color you wish. And I like that. Maybe they're a little too intense. I'm going to reduce the intensity. And there you go. And this is good. Now I'll tell all the other layers to cast shadows. So I'll select all of the other layers. And now I only need to manipulate one because they're all selected. If I make changes to one, it will affect all of them. Material options, cast shadows on, and there you go. So now we have casted shadows on these. I can go ahead and deselect. There you go. By clicking on the gray, you deselect. Now it's time to animate these things. So I'm going to go ahead and animate. I'm going to select all of these layers and I'll press R for rotation. And I think they should just be dancing a little bit. So the Y rotation, I'm going to include a wiggle expression. So press and hold Alt or Option and click on the stopwatch for Y rotation. And let's type the expression, which is the word wiggle. Open parentheses. Oh, let's say 3 times per second, comma, and let's wiggle them 40 degrees. And now I'm going to copy that expression, Control or Command C. That's the treble clef. Paste. So enable the expression and then paste. Alt or Option and then paste. Alt or Option click on the Y rotation and then paste. So that they all pretty much get the same expression. I'll move this up a little bit so we can see it better. In 3D, the layer stacking order doesn't matter too much. What matters is the Z value with respect to the camera. And let's collapse all of these. Oh, let me add it to the drummer. I didn't add the expression to the Y rotation of the drummer. And there you go. Now let's go ahead and reset standard for the workspace. And let's RAM preview this a little bit. And there you go, they're moving a little bit. All I have to do now is to animate a camera so that it flies and sees these musicians from different angles. And I think I'm good. All right, so let me add a camera, layer, new, camera. And I'll click OK. And now I'll animate position and rotation on this camera. I'll select the camera and then press P and then Shift R so I can see all of those parameters. I'll do this so I can see them better. Now I'll just scrub the numbers. Maybe I can zoom in and maybe move to one side. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit more and move down. And I can also rotate it like so. And there you go. I'll add keyframes for all the other parameters. And now maybe I can zoom in even more. And you can pretty much do any kind of animation you want. You could also create another null object, make it 3D, and parent all the layers to that. Sometimes that's a little bit easier and less complicated than animating the camera. Let's go ahead and RAM preview this. And let's play it. Not too bad. You can keep on animating the camera or animate it differently for other results. You can also animate the color of the lights and the position of the lights.